Captain America to help me rebuild the Avengers.
Captain America Brave New World has set up the new Avengers team, with Sam Wilson now being that leader. But the biggest question is, who's going to be on that Avengers team? Because of how the MCU is right now, every character is kind of all over the place. And we're definitely not getting the same Avengers team like we did in the original Avengers. And it's going to be changed up a lot. And there's also a lot of questions that are going to be raised for where characters are at by the time the next Avengers film comes out. To be fair, we do have a bunch of projects that are still coming between now and then, but I don't think half those characters are going to be on the Avengers. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down who's most likely going to be on that team, who might be on that team, and then who's definitely not going to be on it, and why. And I think to start off, of course, Sam Wilson's going to be on this team. Captain America himself is leading it, with the possibility of Joaquin Torres being the Falcon. However, I think he's going to have more of a role like Sam did in Age of Ultron, where he's not a big part of the movie, where he just comes in and goes, because he doesn't have enough training and he hasn't really been Falcon for that long, so it doesn't make sense for him to be on this big team up yet. But that's okay, because we could get another Captain America film where we get more of that Joaquin Torres as he becomes the Falcon, and then in the next Avengers film he comes in. Just like at the end of Age of Ultron, Sam was recruited to the Avengers after he had been through Captain America Winter Soldier. So I think that would make a lot of sense for his character to come in at a later date. Now, the next one would be the Hulk. The Hulk is around in the MCU. We know he's been there, and it would make sense for him to come back, and maybe this is where we do get him breaking more out of that smart Hulk and more into that rampaging Hulk we know and love, because we will definitely need a new, stronger Hulk when it comes to the next big threat that is coming. Plus, because we saw him at the end of Shang-Chi, with him talking to Captain Marvel, Wong, and Shang-Chi about the 10 rings, it would make a lot of sense for him to show up in the next Avengers film. And then that would be the next person, with Captain Marvel also being there because of that same reason. Where after the events of the Marvels and the events of Shang-Chi and the events of the Avengers, she's finally going to join the team on an official standard because they'll need her help. And I think they'll have a better way of communicating with her now, since at the end of the Marvels, she was staying on Earth to watch over Monica's property while she was trapped in another universe. So it would make sense that she would join in the fight if it started on Earth. And then on top of that, that means Shang-Chi would also come in, where Captain Marvel and Bruce talk about how they know someone. They're like, oh, we know someone who could be on this team. They showed us this alien tech that was reaching out to space. This guy could probably help out. Maybe it's something to do with him. Bring Shang-Chi in. He's a new hero, and it would be perfect to bring him into this new team, introduce him, and I think he'll fit well with some of the characters as well. Plus, I think the 10 rings will definitely come in handy when it comes to whatever is to do next, because we have not gotten resolved for what happened yet in his movie, so we still have literally no idea what's to come from him. We know there's going to be a sequel. Maybe his rings will deal with his sequel, but his rings could be dealing with something that comes from Doomsday. Because originally I had a theory it might have to do with Kang, but now that Kang's kind of pushed to the sidelines, we're going to forget about that. Maybe it has something to do with Doom now. And speaking of Kang, that also means that Ant-Man and the Wasp are also probably going to come in. Maybe they come in to talk to Sam about the threat of Kang. We're not dealing with that anymore. That could be a way for them to bring in Ant-Man and Wasp to the Avengers as they need their help for something. And I think because they're one of those heroes that are still active on Earth, they're not retired, they're still around, it would make a lot of sense for Ant-Man to be like, hey, we need to do something, there's a bigger threat coming, and team up with the rest of the Avengers. And this would also kind of make sense because in the original Avengers from the comics, we did have Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym be on the Avengers as Ant-Man and the Wasp. So having them come in as Hope and Scott would just be a nice little nod to the original Avengers having Ant-Man and the Wasp on them. Then, of course, we have our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Peter, no one remembers him anymore. No one knows that he's Peter Parker, but they still remember Spider-Man. He helped them in Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. They know the Spider is still around, and it would make a lot of sense for Sam to recruit him, especially after Civil War, right? Spider-Man kicked his ass, so it would make a lot of sense for him to go recruit this kid, who he might not remember as a kid exactly, but they would go and recruit him because they know he's a strong character. He was a big help during the movies. He's a hero they know that are sitting in New York who has superpowers. And then we have Wong. And I think the reason Wong would come in is because now he's Sorcerer Supreme. It's not Doctor Strange, it's actually Wong. And because Wong dealt with Shang-Chi, Captain Marvel, and Hulk, it would make a lot of sense for him to join the team as well, having that magical-based character on the team. Because he'll be the first that we've really had properly on the team. Because even after Infinity War and Endgame, a lot of those characters weren't really Avengers. I still consider when it came to who was on the main team, with Avengers and Age of Ultron, those were like the main actual Avengers group that teamed up together to go against the big bag. Where Infinity War and Endgame were like, pull all the heroes in. They're part of the Avengers for this. We need their help. So it would make a lot of sense to recruit these characters. And of course, with Wong, we can't forget about the best character of them all, Wong's best friend, Madison. Because, you know, we can't have a movie without Madison in it. And now lastly, I think War Machine would probably get dragged on because Rhodey's friends with Sam. He knows him. However, the biggest conflict with this one would be the fact that Secret Invasion made it look like Rhodey had been captured since Civil War. So that means he never lived through Endgame. He didn't live through Tony's death. And We honestly don't really know still that he was pulled through Civil War, because I don't remember them ever confirming it. A lot of people were speculating that what was happened. I speculated he was pulled from Civil War because it made sense. He was in hospital attire, and Civil War was the last time we saw him where he was in hospital attire. It would make a lot of sense that that's what's going on there. But then that would make it a little harder to deal with his character if he came in the new Avengers film, because there would be a lot he has to get caught up on, inform the people about what happened to him, where he's been, you know, the trauma he's now been through, finding out that his best friend has been killed during this giant alien invasion that he wasn't around for. So I feel like, of course, if we're going to deal with War Machine, Armor Wars would have been the best bet to kind of deal with that plot, deal with him overcoming what just happened to him being replaced by a Skrull, and we could have gone from there. But of course, that series might be canceled now, so we might never get that resolution. Even though I think he'll be on the team, I think that stuff is still up in the air for how we'd properly deal with that stuff before going into the next big conflict. Because I think those are like the main characters that might be on that team. There are a handful that I think are possibilities to show up as well. Like the first one being Yelena and Bucky. I think they're prime people who would be on that team, because Yelena would be like the new Black Widow. She'd come on, take her sister's spot, be that hero that her sister would want her to be, especially after the events of Thunderbolts. Whatever transpires during that movie, it would make sense that maybe she gets pulled along with Bucky to be part of this team of heroes. And with Bucky, I think, you know, he's a hero. We saw him in Captain America Brave New World. I think it would make sense for him to help save the world because Sam has asked him to come join the Avengers. I think he'd be hesitant at first because of his past as Winter Soldier, but I think he would eventually join it because of his and Sam's relationship. Now, the next one is Star-Lord, because he's on Earth. After Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Star-Lord is now living on Earth, so it makes sense if some kind of shit goes down with seeming like an alien attack, he would definitely come to the rescue, being like, oh, well, my duty calls, the legendary Star-Lord is about to arrive. And we were teased about the legendary Star-Lord at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so it would make a lot of sense for him to maybe show up in the next Avengers film. And the Guardians have been part of the Avengers before, so I would definitely see that as happening in the future. Now the next one is Shuri, because I think the Black Panther would show up once again, but I feel like she might be too busy with Wakanda after the events of Wakanda Forever. However, because Wakanda has a very special relationship with Sam now, giving him a suit, I think it would make sense for him to have to go to Wakanda and get a new suit after this movie, because his wings were literally ripped off by the Red Hulk. So having him go to Shuri for a new suit could include her in, and she could join the fight. Now, I think that would be pretty cool to get Shuri to come in, but I don't think she will. I just think she's going to be too busy, especially with Black Panther dealing with her own stuff in Wakanda, shutting off from the rest of the world. I think it'll take time for them to come out again, but honestly, if it's a huge world threat, they might show up. But also with saying that, she did leave to go see Prince T'Challa, and also M'Baku was challenging to be king. So they might be changing up a couple things where maybe they're not busy with Wakanda, but honestly, we'll see. And then last but not least, the Sentry. We know he's going to be in the Thunderbolts. We know he's a big hero from Marvel Comics. And we also know that the Void is showing up in the Thunderbolts as well, which the Void is his evil counterpart, right? He's going to be the big villain of that movie. But once the Thunderbolts are able to calm him down, or maybe figure out how to get the Sentry back out so the Void's not taking over, I think the Sentry is a good recruit, especially if Bucky and Yelena get pulled in. They'll be like, hey, I know this strongest shit guy who would be perfect, because they could have another powerhouse. And I think with the way they're going, they might need it. With Doomsday being this huge, big Doctor Doom event, you know, he might have even stronger characters that he has on his team that the Avengers need stronger ones on theirs to go against it. They'll have the Hulk, they'll have Captain Marvel. They'll most likely need the Sentry to be that next level strength on their team. Now, the last character I think that's probably a higher possibility than the rest to be on the next Avengers team is Doctor Strange. I don't think Sam will recruit him necessarily, but I think he'll come to them to tell them what's going on. After Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness in the post-credits scene, we did see Clea coming to him, telling him about an incursion that's going on and how he needs to help her fix it. And they go into the Dark Dimension, so he's not on Earth right now. However, we know with events leading up to Secret Wars in the comics, incursions are two worlds converging on each other, and one has to be destroyed for the other to live, which means that post-credit scene ties heavily into Doomsday and Secret Wars. Because of what's going to be going on, and if we have got into Emperor Doom creating Battleworld, this will all add up. So having Doctor Strange come in and warning them about incursions, telling them what's about to go on, would make a lot of sense, and that's maybe how the new Avengers team figures out what's actually going on for the new threat and what they need to do to go against it. Now, when it comes to people who I don't think are going to be on that team at all, first one would definitely be Thor, because he's out in space. He's living with his adopted daughter, Love. They're helping the cosmos. I don't think they're going to be around to deal with anything yet, and they might just get dragged in after Secret Wars. Honestly, it would make make a lot of sense for where his character is, because I don't think they want to make a new Avengers team with all the same characters that were on the original team, but with new characters have been added to the MCU. Now, another one, of course, is the Guardians. The Guardians aren't going to be on that team because they're the Guardians and they're doing their own thing in space, but they will most likely show up during Secret Wars when it comes to having Battle World and all the other universes, because, hey, I got to see Groot and Rocket again. We got to see the characters show up. I got to see Cosmo being a freaking awesome Guardian. Like, I really want to see them show up again, so it'd be really amazing to see that happen. And then, of course, Monica Rambeau is not going to be there. She's currently stuck on another universe with the Beast, an alternate version of her mother. So she's most likely going to show up in Secret Wars once the worlds converge, but I definitely don't see her showing up in Doomsday. I mean, I honestly feel like Doomsday is going to be one of those films that's kind of more like Age of Ultron, where it's setting up everything. Maybe Infinity War, where we have some of the other characters appearing, but I don't think it's going to have all the characters showing up. I think we'll be seeing that once we get to Secret Wars. Now, when it comes to a bunch of the other characters in the MCU, there's a bunch that are definitely not showing up. Like, we have She-Hulk. I don't think they're going to use her for the Avengers, mostly because her show wasn't the well-received from a lot of people. I enjoyed the show. I really like her character, but I don't think that a lot of people are going to want to see her on the Avengers. Now, I do think if the Avengers need a lawyer, they might reference her, but I don't think she's going to show up yet. I would really hope that she would show up eventually, because She-Hulk is a big character from the comics, but I don't think they're there yet. And honestly, if they made a season 2 of the show and it came out already, it would have made way more sense for her to show up, because then they could have led up to her joining the team or something like that. But so far, she's been forgotten, just like how a lot of the other characters have been forgotten. Now we have Daredevil, and his show is coming out soon, so it would make a lot of sense for him to be on that team, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to keep him with the street level heroes for now, and then eventually he'll work his way up to being an Avenger, but for the time being, he's probably going to focus on being like a Defender, how they did it during the Netflix series, making him stick with the street level heroes, and that would make a lot more sense for what's going on right now, rather than putting him into this multiverse story. And honestly, if the MCU does like a street level hero saga, that would be so much better. Daredevil and the Defenders could take center focus, and we could be dealing with a lot of those characters. And with the street level characters, the same would go for Moon Knight. I don't think he's going to be in the Avengers. We don't really know what's going on with his character. We haven't seen or heard anything about him since his TV series. All we know is that they introduced Jake Lockley, and then we haven't heard anything since. I'm still annoyed with Marvel that we got one season for all these shows, and then we just haven't seen the characters again in several years. Like, it feels like such a wasted potential to do TV shows and then not continue them with new seasons. Like, oh, let's set up the stuff, and then never hear from them again. And the next person added to that list of street heroes is Echo, just another hero. We don't really know what's going on with them. And the thing is, with the street level heroes I've talked about, I don't think they'd make sense for them to get involved with this multiversal threat, but also they're not very well known, and not a lot of characters would know about them, which a bunch of other characters they would know about, but the street level ones, not so much, at least not yet. Which then we have Hawkeye, which I have heard a lot of people talk about how Hawkeye will most likely be in the next Avengers, but I think he's actually going to be the de facto leader, mentor for the young Avengers. I think with Miss Marvel recruiting Kate Bishop, she'll go tell Clint, and he'll be like that, not parental guardian, but like the older one, mentoring them, teaching them how to be superheroes, and running the team, helping them become an actual team. Because that would make a lot of sense. And I know in the Young Avengers comics, we had like Vision doing that kind of role. So if we put Hawkeye in that role instead, that would work. And speaking of Vision, I don't think White Vision's coming back anytime soon. I think they need to do his series first, do all that, and then we'll get Vision back in the MCU. But I don't think he'll be in the Avengers team because he doesn't really know who he is at the moment. And then we have Scarlet Witch, we still don't know what's happening to her. I thought they would have maybe figured that out by Agatha all along. I thought that was going to be the whole setup. Oh crap, Scarlet Witch is still alive. We have to go find her. But instead, we just got maybe little pieces and nods to her, but nothing else. As of right now, she's dead in the MCU, which I don't think she'll show up until we maybe get a Vision project, another Wiccan project, or something along those lines where we're dealing with more of her family. But right now, she's just gone. And then we have Gaia from Secret Invasion. I honestly think they're just going to forget about this character because Secret Invasion was a flop. And, well, now she's just super OP with a bunch of different characters' powers. But also, I don't think anyone knows who she is, so I highly doubt she's going to make an appearance. But honestly, Emilia Clarke is a really big actress. They could pull her in during Secret Wars, but I just don't think she'll be on that main Avengers team. And, of course, then we have the Young Avengers characters who won't be on the main Avengers team. The Young Avengers, they're leading into that, so it wouldn't make sense for them to be pulled into another team. Even though Miss Marvel has been part of the Avengers, I just highly doubt that she'd be pulled in for this, and it would just be Captain Marvel, because Miss Marvel is currently making the Young Avengers / Champions team with recruiting Kate Bishop, mentioning Cassie Lang, America Chavez, Wiccan, and Ironheart will most likely get recruited later down the road. And I bet you any money, once we get the Ironheart series this year, Miss Marvel will show up at the end and recruit her for the Champions / Young Avengers. So we'll definitely be seeing those characters get together, but they won't be on the Avengers team because I feel like the Avengers team will stay for the adults, minus Spider-Man, because well, it's Spider-Man, or all the younger Avengers will go to that young Avengers team. So I feel like, you know, some of these characters make sense for being on the Avengers, some don't, but I feel like there's just so many characters around right now. It's hard to like reduce it to like 6 people. And the next Avengers team will definitely be larger than the original ones. And I'm very curious to see who's actually gonna be on this team. Am I gonna be right? Am I gonna be wrong? I'm very excited to find out what they're really gonna do. But I'm also kind of worried about the film because it's supposed to be coming out next year, that I don't think it's actually gonna be done that time. And it's gonna get pushed back once again. Maybe they'll move another movie up so that we can get more set up for what's to come, figure out what's going on with some of our characters, rather than it taking place between Doomsday and Secret Wars, which has been rumored to have all those movies taking place on Battleworld, which I'd rather see some of these characters come back sooner so we can get their plot on Earth rather than doing another multiverse world story. But we'll definitely see the movies still have to come out. There's still a lot of news to come out for them. And I feel like as we go forward into the MCU, we'll slowly find out more and more. I mean, right now, there's a lot of inconsistencies where we don't actually know what's going on and nothing really makes a lot of sense. But hey, maybe by the time Doomsday comes out, it'll start to make a lot of sense and the pieces will just fall into place. Even though it was supposed to be Kang Dynasty and that's been completely changed. However, I honestly am still excited. I just want to see these movies do good. I want to see these characters on screen. I just hope for the best, honestly. Even though I've been disappointed, I'll continue to hope and just be disappointed again until something eventually makes me happy as hell. But let me know, who do you want to see on the next Avengers team? Who do you think is a high possibility? Who do you think is not a high possibility? And are there any characters I didn't mention that you think should be on the team? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe button. Helps out the channel a lot. And you get to stay up to date with all my videos like this. And since this is also kind of a Captain America Brave New World video, make sure you check out my other two, the main breakdown for the movie and the one where we talk about what we could have fixed to make the movie a better movie. Those are both linked at the end of this video, so make sure you click them and check them out. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you guys later when it's time to break down another Marvel, DC, or anime project.